Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. It's all too simple for our attention to be fixed on one thing. On the tasks that must be accomplished in order to meet our objectives, whether it's our daily to-do lists or our monthly KPIs, we keep track of everything. The 90-day plan, also known as an annual review, or even those more long-term plans. For some of us, especially in the early stages of our careers, working in this manner can be quite energizing. Others, or once we've gotten over the first few months or years of adrenaline rushes, it's simple, yet it's becoming increasingly exhausting. This does not need to be the case. When we realize that we are unstoppable, flow, or being in the zone, is a state of being. And it isn't simply about doing for us, so much more becomes possible. How would you like to present yourself? As the best version of yourself. In your work and personal life? Throughout this course, we'll look at how you can learn from your mistakes. And others to be the finest version of themselves that they can be. You'll discover the 3 elements that make you unstoppable, and how they can assist you in making a bigger impact. How to find your flow when it's most needed, employing a 6-step procedure to assist you to figure out how to be in flow more often, and, in particular, in areas of your personal or professional life where you'd like to see your performance improve. How being in flow may bring out your best qualities, and to forge a more promising and prosperous future, and how you may apply the same method to follow in the footsteps of other successful people, perhaps your peers, mentor, or boss, even that eminent guru, and take note of their achievements. What does it mean to be unstoppable to you? It means something distinct to every one of us. What would you be able to do right now? What would you do if you were unstoppable? Take a pen and paper and jot down anything comes to mind. What does it mean to be unstoppable, and what does it mean to be unstoppable? Regarding what you might be able to achieve in your career. What would you do if you were unstoppable in your life? The first thing I'd like to do is to ensure that both you and I are safe. Are both starting from the same place in this conversation. People often hear the word unstoppable and think it means unstoppable. As they begin to consider, they must do all of the tasks assigned to them. And there are surely numerous tasks that you must complete. There are always a slew of tasks that need to be completed. There are many people who will tell you what to do. In addition to the fact that there are generally a large number of people to instruct you on how to complete them, but when was the last time you considered who you needed to be to achieve greater success? Keeping our attention on who we need to be helps us get out of our own way when it comes to success. It assists us in avoiding self-sabotage. It enables us to break free from our reluctance to being in the zone and producing the best job possible with ease and grace. Being unstoppable is made up of 3 main components. Something I'd like us to consider before we consider how we'll be. Rather than doing unstoppable, you should do unstoppable. It's all about taking personal responsibility. Not allowing what-if scenarios to get in the way of you actually doing something. Consider a recent adjustment you wish to make. Perhaps at business or in your personal life. You were stopped by something. Make a note of it. It's really likely that when you were contemplating the change, several what-if scenarios crossed your thoughts. What happens if everything goes wrong? What if I make a mistake? If you have any further what-if scenarios running through your head, make a list of those as well. What-if inquiries can be really beneficial. However, in terms of assisting us in weighing our options, they can also be extremely ineffective and prevent us from taking action, taking the next significant move. For example, we decide to accept personal responsibility for our lives when we make the decision to do so. We are given the opportunity to make a decision. We have the option of living at the cause or at the effect. Take a look at the following assertions. Take note of which ones you relate to. Or perhaps you've seen them in other people. We are the victims in our lives when we live in effect. Everything seems to happen to me. This was done to me by someone else. It's the fault of everyone else. Someone else is to blame. I don't have the authority to change it. I'm powerless to change anything. My life is completely out of my hands. When we live for a greater good, we accept personal accountability for our actions. I accept full responsibility for the outcomes. What happens in my life is entirely up to me. I am accountable. I am the master of my own destiny. I have the ability to take action and alter my outcomes. I have the ability to alter undesirable outcomes. Now, try to figure out which beliefs assist us in showing up in life and business as the finest version of ourselves. When we live for a greater good, we acknowledge that the sum of our decisions, both consciously and unconsciously made decisions, have brought us to this point. So, what can you do differently this time? When your life isn't going the way you want it to, and you like to be the cause rather than the effect? Consider the following question, which you might want to write down. What can I take away from this right now? And in the future, what can I do differently or better to stay away from it and or live life to the fullest? I'll say it again. What can I take away from this right now? And what I can do better or differently in the future to stay away from it and enjoy my life to the fullest? The answer to that question aids us in determining the action that will assist us at all times when we notice one of those detrimental thoughts, to remain focused on cause rather than effect. Now, since we're on the subject of negative ideas, let's take a look at mastering mental talents. When I talk about mastering mental skills, I'm referring about mastery of our mental monkeys, is what I actually mean. We all have some kind of mental monkeys. They are the sentiments and thoughts that we produce through our feelings. Here are some examples of what you might think. Make a list of the ones you want to remember. Things you're sure you've used before, alternatively, perhaps you still do. I'm not up to par. I'm insufficient. It's not worth it for me. I'll take care of it later. I'd never be able to. I won't be able to do it on my own. I'll do it as soon as. I'll never be able to match. The issue about thoughts is that they aren't always accurate. They're only ideas. And having these kinds of ideas is a completely natural reaction to try something different or even take the next step in our professional lives. When we realize them for what they are, merely ideas rather than affixing anything to them or comparing ourselves to them, they start to lose their clout. These are some of our thoughts from time to time. Because our brain is wired to keep us safe when this happens, it's a good idea to remind ourselves. Among the many ways in which we are and will be protected, if we do whatever it is that we're thinking about. If you're having trouble with one of these ideas, or you are familiar with them, if you've ever been trapped with a problem, now is the time to ask yourself, what could be a more useful notion than this right now? Make a note of it. You can bolster the fresh idea by recording the evidence that you have for your new idea. Consider a time when you were confident in your abilities, or you were adequate, or you were comparable to, maybe you accomplished it all by yourself. Visualize it in your mind's eye. And jot down what you can see, hear, and feel, as well as how it makes you feel. The more evidence we can provide to our mental monkeys, the better. That we've figured it out, the simpler it is to lose track of the thought. This prevents us from acting or taking the next move. Here's a beautiful quotation about the importance of changing our minds. Is really crucial. You alter your beliefs when you change your thinking. When your beliefs shift, your expectations shift as well. When you adjust your expectations, you'll notice a difference. You alter your mindset. You alter your conduct when you change your attitude. When you alter your behavior, you alter your results. And if you alter your performance, you'll notice a difference. You alter the course of your life. One last idea on the subject of thoughts. The most potent phrases I am in the English language. Whatever terms you use to describe yourself, regardless of whether they are negative or positive, are the things you'll go on to make throughout your life. If you notice any negative or erroneous ideas, if you're not sure if it's true, and renaming it to something more appropriate, those mental monkeys will be more careful next time. Threaten to take control of your thoughts. Never forget to ask yourself, what would be a better thought, and repeat it as if it were a chant, put it on as if it were a new coat. Continue to experiment with the new, more useful terminology. Until you find a version you can live with and believe in, that is. Continue to practice. We live in a complicated, often turbulent era. He was a management consultant named Peter Drucker, educator and novelist who passed away in 2005 at the age of 95. Once upon a time, it was foretold that the only style of leadership that could exist was that of a personal leadership is what will matter in the 21st century. It's all about personal leadership. Our inner game, leading from the inside out. What do we need to be, act, and think like in order to be the best we can be? Realizing our full human potential for personal growth and development, understanding how we function, and being ready to set sail on a path of personal transformation, in order to achieve our full potential, educates us both about ourselves and about others. We discover what drives us, what motivates us, and what our values are. The skills and abilities that we have to give, the global influence that we want to make, and it is via this self-discovery process that we learn the importance of personal awareness. To achieve our maximum potential and be successful, personal leadership development also enables us to operate more efficiently. We become more efficient and productive. Our mission and values provide us with a sense of purpose and direction to achieve our objectives. So, how do we make ourselves unstoppable? Let's have a look. Unstoppable is something we're quite good at. But how do we make ourselves unstoppable? So far, we've discussed the significance of taming our mental monkeys and living at cause, as well as effective personal leadership. All of this aids us in achieving the finest possible state. For striving to be the best version of ourselves, being in a condition of flow. There has been a lot of study done into the idea of being in the zone. There are also numerous detailed meanings. The Ascension of Superman, this is all about deciphering the pinnacle of human performance. Extreme athletes, for example. Flow, according to Stephen Kotler, is very engaged. Nothing else matters in this activity. Time flies, and the ego fades away. Each and every action, movement, and thought is inextricably linked to the previous one. Your entire being is participating, and you're making the most of your abilities. It's a fantastic definition, and one with which I strongly identify. Despite this, the more client work I've done, the more satisfied I've been. The more I've felt compelled for a more straightforward definition to work with. So here's my contribution. When you're in the zone, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And how you go about it are perfectly in sync with who you are, as well as the manner in which you express it. So, what do you think an example of being in flow would be? I'd like you to come up with something that you are quite good at, so that we can deal with it in the following chapters. Consider a hobby or a pastime that you enjoy, that you excel at, and that really engrosses you. Maybe it's even a little difficult for you. When you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, you lose track of time because you are entirely absorbed. You don't have to think much intentionally. It just happens because you're so engrossed in what you're doing. If you're anything like me, you grow so used to it that you forget about it. That by the time you look up again, hours have passed. Do you have one? It could be anything at all. I once utilized this method to assist a director. Things I'd been working with for a while. And she showed there with the example she picked to investigate. Her tapestry was a work of art. For a little while, I was perplexed. If I should question her decision. After all, this was leadership training. Her employer was paying for her to work with me, as was her organization. Could we really devote an entire morning to this? Are you referring to a tapestry? My coaching instincts, on the other hand, were powerful. Do exactly what I would advise anyone else to do. And have faith in the process. So put your faith in the method I used. Looking at the environment is the first step. I immediately saw preparation and her painstaking attention to even the tiniest detail, something she had previously discussed in our discussions. With each stitch she explained, I could envision it. She was speaking about her own personal experience. Throughout her company she recognized it too after about 25 minutes. That demonstrated to me how strong this process is. We can actually learn a lot about ourselves. Almost any example will suffice. This is why it's so important to know who we are while we're in flow. The procedure we'll follow is as follows: focuses on a skill that you have. We spend too much time focusing on what we don't get right. However, there's a lot to be learned from our strengths as well. When we excel at anything, we are rewarded. Unconscious competence is a term used to describe a person's ability to perform without being aware. We do it so naturally that we don't even realize what's involved. We can reintroduce it into our conscious thoughts by doing so. We may learn from our own examples of excellence in the workplace. We can use this knowledge to improve our performance in different aspects of life and work once we've retrieved the lessons from each stage. Based on what you're good at, we'll be on the lookout for minor tweaks. Even the minor differences that can make a difference if you use them in a different situation where you wish to make improvements. What is the distinction that makes a difference? This procedure is being used on this occasion. To have a better understanding of ourselves, Robert Dilts was the one who came up with the idea. One of the most prominent figures in the field of NLP, to comprehend and model other people's performance as well as organizations. You can follow the same 6 stages as before. And enlist the help of your peers or mentor to answer your questions, or your employer, and take notes from them as well. I'll go into more detail about that later. You'll need a pen for the next 2 chapters, as well as some paper. You might want to go somewhere by yourself, where you have a strong desire to be thoughtful or creative. Our education here will be hands-on. I'm going to ask you a few questions and encouraging you to participate in the discussion. This is referred to as stream of consciousness writing. It's a type of writing that's commonly employed. When you write in a reflective diary, you don't only think about what you're writing about. You listen to the question, and you get the answer. Put your pen to the paper and believe in it. To carry out the writing, isn't that strange? Yes, it's possible, but I promise you, it's quite effective. I urge that you set a goal to write every day. For each response, about 15 minutes. Alternatively, you could fill up to 3 sides of A4 paper. You could be astonished by what your mind comes up with. When you don't give it too much thought, just put your faith in yourself to figure things out. And just document with your pen whatever comes to mind is what you should do. When I first began experimenting with this style of writing, I started writing crazy things, and I couldn't stop myself. Why am I writing with a pink pen, for example? That doesn't flow smoothly over the page? Or, why does writing in this position pain my shoulder? By not resisting the urge to jot down. Whatever gibberish came to mind, I ignored it. I quickly found the good stuff. Flows quickly onto the page. What can you do if you aren't a well-known author? Make a video of your thoughts. Whether it's on your phone or with your camera, later, you can listen to your recording and reflect on it. We'll look at 6 different aspects of being in flow. The first 3 sections will be about your work and the manner in which you go about it. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th points all have to do with who you are, as well as the manner in which you express it. It's a really hands-on approach to learning. I'll provide a quick overview of each topic and ask some questions that you might want to think about. After that, you'll be invited to pause the video. Then use the strategy to solve one specific question just as described. Let's start with the surroundings, in which you carry out the task item you've selected to investigate. Consider your example and visualize yourself carrying it out. When you undertake this activity, where are you? When are you going to do it? Is there anyone else here? What matters is how you prepare both yourself and others, as well as the setting in which this action takes place. Perhaps you require a specific type of atmosphere or specialized gear. Perhaps you dress in a particular way to do out this activity or to make you feel good or more assured. Here's the specific question I'd like you to answer: to keep a journal on your surroundings. When and where do you feel like you're in the zone? Are there any particular requirements for planning or carrying out this activity? Take a break from the video and get a pen and paper. Once you begin to write, take note of what comes to mind. Continue writing until at least one page has been filled. And take note of everything you discover after you've finished. Go over your notes again. And take note of what you've learned. It could be something you didn't know where you have. Perhaps anything crucial that you hadn't noticed. Make a mental note of what you've learned and then ask yourself, where else could that come in handy? Where could knowing or putting this into practice help me perform better? Could assist me in becoming more consistent in another area or more self-assured? When you've squeezed out all the knowledge you can, it's time to move on. Through learning about your surroundings and how you prepare, on to the next level. The next step is your actions, or what it means to be in flow. We're taking a look at what you actually do here. When you're doing this thing that you're learning about, recall your example of being in the zone. Consider all the tasks you perform on a daily basis. As far as you're able to recall, you're attempting to remember something that happened a long time ago. In what you do for granted, as a result, you haven't had to give each work any thought in this manner. Take note of what you accomplish on a task-by-task basis. When you're in the zone, what do you do? Take note of what you're doing, and how well you're doing it. Consider what you see, hear, and feel. When you're in flow, you'll be able to sense it. Pause the video once more and take note of what comes to mind. As soon as you begin writing, when you've completed your writing, examine your notes and take note of what you've learned. What are some of the things you've noticed about what you do that you weren't aware of before? What did you notice that you thought was significant? What other areas may that be useful in? Of your job or your personal life? When you've completed all of your current learning, proceed to the next step of our process, your capability and talents. We've progressed from what you do while you're in the zone to what you do when you're not. To the skills and abilities you employ. What you do was the subject of the previous chapter. This chapter explains how to go about doing that. The abilities, attributes, and techniques you employ. I'd like you to consider how you use your thinking, as well as what abilities or skills you possess, or you must be in a state of flow. What if you had something you needed to learn or practice? What kind of information have you gained in order to carry out the behavior you're investigating? Don't worry if this question seems a little more difficult. It just happens on sometimes. Please allow me to ask you a question. What powers or abilities would I require? Should keep doing what you're doing when you're in the zone, when you're doing this thing you're learning about? I'm not sure why, but it seems to clear the mind sometimes. To respond to the question in a different way, here's the next question to jot down in your journal. What skills do you need or have to be in flow? What abilities, characteristics, and techniques do you employ? When you've completed your writing, think about what you've learned once more. What is the skill that you've been overlooking, or hadn't recognized how critical it is? What skill or expertise do you think you could pass on to a different environment and increase your effectiveness there? Make a note of it as well. Have you gotten the most out of that question? Let's go on to Chapter 5 now. Where do we go from the what and how of flow to the where and how of flow? To the who and how you need to be in order to be in flow. We've progressed from what we do to how we do it. To who we are as individuals. We take into account your values and views, your true self and your ultimate goal. That's some highfalutin stuff, huh? But it's the stuff that, when we think about it, makes us think. Can make a significant difference in terms of the impact we have in both our work and personal lives. The first step in figuring out who we are is to figure out who we are not. Is to think about your principles and beliefs. They are significant to us. Beliefs are the ideas we hold to be correct. They explain why we do things the way we do. What we regard as important are our values. Our ideals serve as a guide for how we live our lives. They influence our every decision on an unconscious level. When we live our lives in accordance with our core principles, we instill a sense of security and inner tranquility. When things aren't going our way, it's time to take action. The inverse is true. We also have to deal with internal strife till we've regained our bearings. Return to the capabilities and skills list. that you made in the previous chapter. Consider what makes those valuable for a moment. Why do you employ those certain skills and abilities? And as you glance over that list, you'll notice that given whatever you've learned about what you do thus far, what are the values that are most important to you? And what exactly do you have to believe to continue doing what you do so well? Your next question is as follows. What are the values that are most important to you? And what values do you hold in your heart when you're in the zone? Today, what does your pen have to say to you? Consider what you've learned as you read your response about your convictions and what are the most significant values. Try ranking your values from most important to least important. What are the 3 most important values that you'd prefer to live by? Ask yourself, as before, what are your core beliefs or principles that you might be able to transfer to another area that would make a significant difference in your work or life to how you present yourself there as well. Now we delve a little deeper into who we truly are and pondering our idea of self. Take a look at all of the notes you've already made. And take a time to look at yourself in the mirror doing and being all of the above when you're in the zone while you're conducting this activity. Keep an eye on yourself that you're so proficient at. What are some of the things you've noticed about who you need to be to do it properly? Take a time to reflect on your learning experience. Things you've had to go through to get here. What have you discovered about yourself as a result of this experience? I'd like to ask you a specific inquiry to write about next is, when you use such beliefs, who are you? Behaviors and capabilities when you're in the zone? I've seen a fantastically inspiring selection of things over the years. In the number of responses to this question, as a result, don't be afraid to answer the query for you. As you write, be inspired by your response. What do you observe as you read your notes about who you are and who you want to be? What would happen if you pretended to be this person in every aspect of your life? What difference would it make to you if that were the case? When you've digested that, move on to the next one. It's time to move on to the next phase. We've arrived at the conclusion of your investigation of being in the zone so far. You've looked into the where, who, and why. At different phases now we'll take a look at who else is involved. This might be about your mission or vision, or perhaps your sense of belonging to something or someone outside of yourself. Think about why you do what you do. When you're in the zone, what is your vision for the future? Or resembling? Who else are you serving but yourself when you're in the zone? That, in fact, is the final question. Who else are you looking after when you're in the zone? If it's easier for you to think of your vision or mission, write it down. Instead, keep a notebook about it. When you've completed this last section of journaling, take note of how much of a difference it makes. Must have a clear goal in mind for what you're doing. Where else might you check your mission statement? Is your goal to have a bigger effect, or do you want to increase your performance? And how would things change if you did? We'll look at how to use it in the upcoming chapter. To learn from others, follow the same procedure. It's always good to have a few tricks up your sleeve. When you wish to learn something new, learn it rapidly from someone else. I hope you found it interesting. Of learning and experiential learning in a fresh light about yourself, there is a great deal to be learned. By demonstrating high levels of performance or quality, it's also a really quick means of learning, because you can get to the heart of the matter of what is truly essential to know. Utilizing the same framework, keep in mind that you're looking for the difference. That is what distinguishes us. Allow me to explain. Assume you're an expert at preparing cheese sauce. You've gone through the procedure on your own, and you now have a good grasp of the situation of who you are and how you do it. When you're making a decision, what's most essential to you? Cheese sauce of yours. Then you learn that your next door neighbor has died, is also an expert at preparing cheese sauce. You have the option of going over all of the questions. I've asked you to think about the specific questions, as well as each section's questions, and inquire about your neighbor's sauce. You don't want their recipe though. You're on the lookout for a special ingredient in their work and the way they do it. or even what they consider to be significant, or who they are when they're in the kitchen. What is the mysterious component or item that they do in a unique way regarding the method for making cheese sauce? Wouldn't that make your homemade cheese sauce even better? That's what I'm referring to when I say different. That would be the deciding factor. You could even go out and conduct an interview with Chef Ramsay. Since you'd most likely have less time rather than your neighbor, you should work with them. As a result, you must understand how to make the most of your situation. What they say every second, what they don't say, and what they don't say, whatever it is that you want to study, always seek out the distinction. That would be significant. If you used it to change the way you do things, you want to be the best version of yourself possible. Not the best impersonation of someone else. We've made it to the end of the course. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. How to be the best version of yourself in both business and life. Let's take a look back at what we've covered so far. Visualize yourself one last time in your mind's eye. When you're in the zone, if you want, you can close your eyes. Play it in your head like a movie. And take note of what you've learned about the context in which you're doing it. What you do to prepare yourself and your surroundings. For those times when you're in the zone, visualize yourself doing the physical actions. The actions that come with being in flow, and really pay attention to how you use your strengths to the fullest extent of your abilities. As you hear yourself, pay attention. Describing the skills and abilities that you employ when you're in the zone, and consider how crucial those personal characteristics are in bolstering the skills you employ. Take note of how important your values and beliefs are to you. When you're in the zone and you're allowing yourself to be creative, to gain the ability to feel who you truly are, in a state of flow, your innermost self. Consider how you can be of assistance to others, to your mission and objective, your most powerful link. Congratulations on everything you've accomplished and learned throughout this course. As we come to a close, take a moment right now to visualize yourself in full flow today, tomorrow, and the days ahead. Consider how you might present yourself differently. Now that you have a better understanding of your flow, consider what people will be saying in a month. Observing how you are being your authentic self, when it really matters. I'm completely in the zone. Take note of how wonderful that feels. Listen to the difference in your tone of voice. And you will notice a difference in your body. You're in full swing. What an incredible sensation. Take it with you and you're good to go. I'm curious to hear how you get on. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.